Welcome to English Easy Hub. Join us as we ignite the flames of your English learning journey together.
Please subscribe to watch and embark on your English learning journey. Don't miss out on the exciting content. In this conversation, Simon seeks guidance on making his spoken English sound more natural. He realizes that despite having a good grasp of grammar, his speech lacks fluency and authenticity. Through an insightful discussion with his professor, Simon explores various strategies, including listening to real conversations, practicing connected speech, using idioms appropriately, and understanding cultural context. The professor provides in-depth explanations on how to develop a natural speaking rhythm, improve pronunciation, and build confidence when speaking with native speakers. This conversation serves as a practical guide for English learners who wish to refine their spoken English and communicate more naturally.
Hello, Professor. I've been studying English for a long time, but I still feel like my spoken English sounds unnatural. It's grammatically correct, but something is missing. How can I make my English sound more natural?
That's an excellent question, Simon. Many English learners face this challenge because traditional learning methods often focus more on grammar and vocabulary rather than how people actually speak in daily life. Natural English involves rhythm, tone, cultural context, and the ability to adapt your language to different situations. If you want to sound more natural, you need to immerse yourself in real spoken English and pay attention to how native speakers communicate. Not just what they say, but how they say it.
I think I understand. So, I should focus more on listening to real conversations rather than just studying textbook dialogues?
Exactly. Textbooks often present overly formal or structured conversations that don't reflect real-life speech. Native speakers use contractions, connected speech, slang, idioms, and sometimes even break grammatical rules in casual conversations. If you only practice textbook English, your speech might sound stiff or robotic. Instead, listen to podcasts, watch TV shows, and pay attention to real conversations. Try to notice how people phrase things differently depending on context.
I've noticed that native speakers don't always pronounce words the way they're written. For example, going to often sounds like gonna. Should I try to speak like that too?
Good observation. Yes, this is called connected speech, and it's an important part of sounding natural. Phrases like gonna, going to wanna, want to, and lemme, let me, are common in spoken English. However, you should be mindful of when to use them. In informal settings, it's perfectly fine, but in professional or academic situations, it's better to pronounce words more clearly. Learning when and how to use these contractions will help your English sound more fluid and natural.
That makes sense. What about filler words? I hear people say like, and I mean all the time. Do these make English sound more natural?
Yes, filler words are a natural part of spoken English. They help make speech sound more conversational and allow the speaker time to think. However, you need to use them in moderation. Overusing fillers can make you seem unsure or hesitant. Instead of relying on them too much, practice pausing naturally when you need to gather your thoughts. This will make you sound more confident and articulate while still keeping your speech natural.
That's really helpful. I've also noticed that native speakers use a lot of idioms and expressions that don't make sense when translated directly. How can I learn to use them naturally?
Great question. Idioms, phrasal verbs, and cultural expressions are a big part of natural English. But they can be tricky because they don't always follow logical rules. The best way to learn them is through exposure. Instead of memorizing long lists of idioms, pay attention to how they're used in context, through movies, books, and conversations. Try using them yourself in sentences. If you're unsure whether you're using an idiom correctly, ask a native speaker or look for examples online.
I see. But sometimes when I try using idioms, I feel like they sound forced. How can I make them flow more naturally in my speech?
That's a common issue. The key is to use idioms only when they fit naturally into a conversation. If you force them into your speech just to use them, it can sound unnatural. Instead, observe how native speakers use them and try incorporating them into your speech gradually. A good way to practice is by repeating short dialogues from TV shows or mimicking natural conversations where idioms are used. This will help you develop an instinct for when and how to use them.
That's a great idea. I'll start paying more attention to idioms in real conversations. What about humor? I struggle with understanding jokes in English, and I never know how to respond when someone makes a joke.
Humor is deeply cultural, so it can be one of the most challenging aspects of learning a language. English humor often involves wordplay, sarcasm, or references to pop culture, which might not translate well. To improve, expose yourself to comedy shows, stand-up performances, and social media content. Pay attention to how jokes are structured and how people react. If you don't understand a joke, it's okay to ask, "Oh, I didn't get that. What does it mean?" With time, you'll start recognizing patterns and even making your own jokes.
That makes sense. Speaking of culture, I've realized that understanding cultural context is just as important as learning the language itself. How can I improve my cultural awareness?
That's an insightful observation, Simon. Language and culture are closely connected. To truly speak naturally, you need to understand the customs, traditions, and social norms of English-speaking countries. Engage with English language media, follow current events, and learn about different cultural habits. For example, in Western cultures, small talk is common in social situations, while in some other cultures, it might not be as emphasized. Understanding these nuances will help you communicate more naturally and build better connections with native speakers.
That's really interesting. I've been trying to practice speaking more, but sometimes I feel nervous, especially when talking to native speakers. How can I overcome this fear?
It's completely normal to feel nervous when speaking a second language. The key is to build confidence through practice. Start by speaking with supportive people, such as language partners or friends who understand your learning process. Focus on communication rather than perfection. Native speakers appreciate the effort, and minor mistakes won't stop them from understanding you. Also, remind yourself that making mistakes is a natural part of learning. The more you speak, the more comfortable you'll become.
That's a great reminder. I've also been working on my pronunciation. Should I try to sound exactly like a native speaker, or is it okay to have an accent?
Having an accent is completely fine as long as your speech is clear and understandable. Many fluent English speakers have accents, but they communicate effectively. Instead of trying to eliminate your accent completely, focus on pronunciation features that affect clarity, like word stress, sentence rhythm, and intonation. If certain sounds are difficult for you, practice them regularly, but don't stress about achieving a perfect native accent. Clarity and confidence are far more important.
That's reassuring to hear. One last thing, how can I make my English sound more engaging and expressive?
That's a fantastic question. Expressive speech is all about varying your tone, pitch, and speed to match the situation. Native speakers don't speak in a flat, monotone voice. They emphasize certain words, raise or lower their voice for effect, and use gestures and facial expressions to add meaning. You can practice this by mimicking actors, listening to TED Talks, or even reading aloud with different emotions. The more you practice, the more natural and engaging your speech will become.
Thank you, Professor. This has been incredibly helpful. I feel much more confident about improving my spoken English now.
You're very welcome, Simon. Keep practicing, stay curious, and remember that learning a language is a journey. The more you engage with real English, the more naturally you'll speak. Keep going and enjoy the process.
By the end of the conversation, Simon gains a deeper understanding of what makes English speech sound natural, beyond just grammar and vocabulary. He learns that immersion, cultural awareness, and continuous practice are key to achieving fluency. The professor emphasizes the importance of listening to real-life conversations, using idiomatic expressions naturally, practicing expressive speech, and overcoming the fear of making mistakes. The conversation highlights that mastering spoken English is not about perfection, but about effective communication and adaptability. With these insights, Simon feels more confident in his journey to becoming a fluent and natural English speaker.
Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share to keep the English learning journey alive.